Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hi, this is Tammy Patzer, and I'm really excited to introduce you to today's guest, Q Jackson. She's known as the $100,000 housewife. She helps men and women who've lost their way with God in control of their finances. She's a real estate investor, interior stylist, relationship coach, and she's certified in financial services. Q helps women sort through the internal clutter that is spilled over into their homes. Her mission is to help women rebuild their relationship with God, themselves, and their finances. Welcome, Q.
Thank you so much for having me.
I think you bring up a really interesting point. God, internal conflict, and finances or money. Tell me more about how did you come to determine that you could help people with this, and who is it that you help?
Okay, well, there are two things in life that can always be repaired, and that is your relationship with God and your credit. I mean, no matter how many times you mess it up, those are the two relationships that you can always mend back together. So I learned that just through my own trials and tribulations, that no matter how many times I screwed up my credit, I can go back and repair it. The same thing that I can do with my relationship with God. So it was just an interesting point and revelation that I learned just through my own struggles of trying to figure things out in the credit world. And having money and having credit can be totally mind-boggling if you don't know what to do with it, because really money is just a tool. It helps you solve problems and situations, but it also can create them. So it can be a barrier, it can be an obstacle, but it can also be a resource if you know how to use it. So I just enjoy the fact that I can help someone else solve the same type of problems or dilemmas that I was having, just through helping them understand how did they get there. Because a lot of people think, oh, I know how I messed up my credit. I overspent. Well, it's not that simple, because there are some reasons as to why you overspent. There may be some triggers as to what happened, or why do you feel as though you have to go out and go on this wild shopping spree every time you get depressed or every time, something goes wrong. What is it about the situation that makes you overspend? Yes, we all have bills. That is something that will never, ever end. But at the same time, why do you create the ones that you do that got you into financial debt? So I just want to encourage people and help them learn about financial literacy and also about financial abuse that goes on in behind closed doors, because it's something that we don't talk about, because finances is a very touchy subject for a lot of people. So I just help you rebuild the only two things that can always be repaired.
Well, that's really fascinating, because the words that you just said, the financial abuse, which money, many times in relationships, money is a source of power. Well, I'll give you money or I won't give you money. And I can actually look back in history and remember, having $25, to spend on groceries, and there wasn't anything left for the basics like dish soap or toilet paper. And so it was a very tightrope. And I can understand that. One of the things that I think is really important is you talk about balancing your relationships, and the relationship between how do you integrate your financial health and your relationship with God? I think that's very interesting. How does that work?
Well, your relationship and your finances are similar to a checkbook. If you constantly have people depositing negativity into you, then it creates an overdraft. It creates for you to, it leaves you physically, emotionally, and financially bankrupt. You have nothing else to give to yourself, to give to your household, your children, your mate, the people around you, your job. So it creates a barrier between you and the outside world, and you have nothing else left to give. So if you continuously, you have to be accountable for the deposits that you make into yourself, and the withdrawals that you take out of by eliminating certain things out of your life. But you have to be cognizant of what it is that you take in every day. What is it that you do on an everyday basis to make you spend $7 on that coffee, but yet you need $10 in gas? So it has to be a balance. You just can't, say that you want something and that you desire to have something, but you choose not to work towards that thing in which you want. You have to create balance in your life. So the relationship with God helps you to be centered, because you have to remember that although you may have a job, God is your provider, and He's a jealous God. So if you say, well, hey, I don't need God, I have a job, well, what happens when you get sick? What happens when you get laid off? What happens if you go through this abusive relationship and you no longer are able to control the finances? Then that's when people, sometimes decide they're going to count or call on God, because at that time they need help, because they were relying on that source of income, when really He is your source.
Okay, I understand that. That's really interesting. I imagine that many people are, that they're thinking about the withdrawal and the deposits. And as you were talking about the deposits you make into yourself and then the withdrawals, that makes perfect sense. And then, of course, if you can look at your bank account in the same way, and about, it's like, okay, you have so much money going in, so much money going out. And of course, if you take out too much, you have a deficit. Just like if you get too much negative energy, it causes all kinds of negativity in your life, and you don't feel well. And, it just is a snowball effect. Exactly. And it happens both in, like you said, in your relationship with God, and then also with your relationship with money. So, and I'm sure you've experienced this, I don't like cash because I never know what I did with it. It's like I'll have $100 bill and all of a sudden I'm digging through my purse looking for quarters.
Exactly.
And it's like, what happened to that? Did I lose it? Did I drop it? And then I'll start to think, and I'll go, well, I did this, and then I go, did that cost $100? Mm-hmm. So what is that? How do we start to control? Again, money is, like you said, I think, and that's a really good point. Money's a tool.
Yes.
So how do we take the tool called money and take some of our weird beliefs off of it and use it what it's meant to do to help us move forward? How do we use the tool of money and get control of it?
So there can be some really simple and easy steps, very, very practical. So let's go back to that $100 bill. We all know once you break a bill, literally it seems like it disappears. So let's say, okay, I need $20 for gas, and there it goes. There's $80. So now you have to consciously make a decision that will equal the dollars. So once you put the $80 back in your purse, you need to consciously remember where you put it. Don't just throw it in, because that's a lot of times It creates confusion. It creates clutter. So you have to map out what it is you need to do with it, where it needs to go. So every dollar should have a mark. Every dollar should make a decision for you. You should make a decision for that dollar and don't let the dollar make a decision for you. So if you say, okay, I put the $20 in the gas tank, know that that $20 went in the gas tank. So now what do I do with the other $80? What is it for? Because remember, it's a tool. So in order for it to work for you, you have to work with it. Not for it, but with it. So you have to map out whatever it is you want those dollars to do for you. So if it's just a trip to the grocery store, make a list. If you are not a person that is easily able to make a decision, then you have to write down what you need, not what you want, and stick to it. Because really it's about making a decision to help yourself. Because we can go in the grocery store. I've done it plenty of times. I can just say, I'm going to get bread and eggs. And I come out with a whole grocery cart of stuff. And then I look up and say, wow, I shouldn't have did that. So we have to make a conscious decision to say and stick to it. So you have to have a plan. So I look at it as prepare, plan, and move. So if you have that $80 and the $20 is gone in the gas tank, and now you're going to say, okay, I'm going to go to the grocery store. This is how much I have, and this is the only thing I have, and this is what I'm going to do with it. And always try to have some left over. Now, that's the thing that sticks. You know, a lot of people are like, well, hey, I never have anything left over. Let's go back and figure out what you don't need. Because a lot of times we place our wants and our desires over our needs, which can cause a great imbalance, not just in our checkbook, but in other areas of our lives. It could cause you overeating. So that's an area that also can trigger, that can cause some things to go awry in our finances. It can cause you to buy those pair of shoes that you don't need, and then 2 weeks later you're very upset because you need that $50. So it's just prepare, plan, prepare, and move. So you have to make a conscious decision as to what you're going to do with those dollars.
Plan, prepare, and move. Okay, I like that. That's an easy formula to remember, and when you attach it to money, that really makes a lot of sense. So tell me, Q, how did you start to learn about how to use money?
Oh, wow. Money was always a hard conversation for me. It was something I never wanted to talk about because I messed my credit up at go. 18, 19 years old, I acquired credit cards and I ran them up. And once I needed credit, I realized, oh, wow. But the thing about it was I realized that I was never taught what credit was. I was just told, pay your bills every month. Well, what does that mean? What happens if I don't? So those are things that we have to teach our children, and we also have to relearn ourselves as adults. What does credit really mean? So I went through my teens, my late teens, and immediately I had bad credit. When I got to my 20s and I needed to buy a car, and they said, oh, no, So I said, okay, well, what do I have to do? So I started really studying what money was, what credit was. And I said, oh, okay, well, if you just need this credit score, what do I have to do to get that credit score? So I started playing this number game because that's what a credit is. It's a number game. And I would rebuild it just enough to get what I wanted. And once I got it, you let it go. You get credit cards again. So this was a cycle that went on for years. And then finally, I hit a low point where I had 3 cars repossessed. I went into foreclosure. I was, making payday loans. I was just on a spiral down. And it was all because of my emotions. I was buying things that I didn't need. I wanted stuff that I couldn't afford, but I did not understand credit. I also did not understand money. I just knew, hey, you need a car and you need a house. Well, you can buy a house, but there's insurance that you need to put on the house. There are everyday repairs that go with it. When you have a car, you have an oil change, and the bill comes every month. And Tammy, let me tell you, I had got sick of that, and I think I just literally just was like, I don't want to pay this bill every month. This is due every month. I know it sounds crazy, but there are so many people that truly get to that point where they're like, oh, my God, I have to pay this every month. So it's retraining your mind. It's also learning how much you need credit and what credit can do for you, but also understanding using money in a way that it is just that. It's just a tool. It's a resource. So, yes, people think, oh, you have good credit, and you can go out and buy anything. Well, that's not what credit is for. Credit is for you. It's attached to your name. So credit lets people know how good you are with the money that they give you. So it tells the bank, once they pull up your credit score, they don't even have to know your name. They know you by a number. It tells them immediately, oh, you're good at handling your finances. So money is about, and credit is about responsibility. And that's what I was lacking, responsibility.
That's really interesting. So because you said 2 really powerful words, one was accountability and then responsibility. So and I know this is really personal, but just how far down did you go in the debt load?
Tammy, I can say now I was over $100,000 in debt.
Okay, but here's the good news. So we now have a starting point. You were $100,000 in debt, but how come today people are calling you the $100,000 housewife? You're a housewife. How did you turn into this $100,000 housewife? And you're a real estate investor, interior stylist, relationship coach, and you're certified in financial services. So what happened, Q?
Well, what happened, Tammy, is I got tired of being broke. I got tired of robbing Peter to pay Paul back and then robbing Paul to pay Peter back. It was it was a circle. It was like I was a hamster on the wheel, and it was something that I was going through all the time. So I just decided, enough is enough. I can't do this anymore. I need to get a hold of my finances. I need to get a hold of my credit. And I literally shut everything down, and I started really getting serious about it. So during that time period, I didn't have anything. My car was repossessed. I had just lost my home. So I started from ground zero. And I had to go back, and that goes back to having a relationship with God. I said, God, I don't have anything. I blamed it on him. You took everything from me. I didn't take responsibility. But at that moment, something just came over me where I said, you know what? I did this. So I need to apologize first to God, then to myself. And then you have to make it right with the credit bureaus. So literally, people don't like to even bring up their credit report because it has all this stuff on it. Every last thing that you could possibly imagine that you've done over the last 10 years with your credit is on there, but you have to face it. And I didn't want to do that. But that particular day, I sat down and I went through it with a fine-tooth comb. There are some things on your credit report that don't even belong to you. They can belong to someone else that maybe have the last same 4 digits of your Social Security number, someone that may stay in the house with you. So there are a lot of things to that you have to go over just to make sure it's even yours. But what I started doing is I started going to the people that I did owe, and I said, hey, I'm sorry, in a roundabout way. How can I make amends for what I owe you? Sometimes you can make a settlement. Depending on how old it is, it automatically falls off. There are things and resources that you can do to get rid of it. There are letters that can be written in order for them to be removed. So once I started doing that, I started securing lines of credit with different companies, and it was small, and it took me some time to finally build up my credit, but also I was able to piggyback on my husband's credit. And so I researched that, and I found that that was a good tool and resource that could help me. So once I was able to do that, I started literally diving into the real estate market. And once I did that, from then on, I started making $100,000 deals in real estate, and that was my target market. That's what I would do. So I invested in something that I knew would return a profit on my investment, and I stick to it. And once I hit that goal, I jump out. I'm not looking for equity. I'm not concerned about any interest. I am concerned about building wealth. And how can I build wealth the quickest? And what allows me to do so is the housing market.
That's pretty phenomenal. So now you have the experience of going from a negative and being someone who is a huge credit risk to now having excellent credit. And you said something about your husband's credit, which basically he had good credit that you could, because you're married, become like be put onto one of his good accounts?
Yeah, so it's called piggybacking, and it's been in practice for a long time. Some people, you don't even have to be married. They don't have to be a spouse. It could be a child, or it could be a parent and a child. So say, for instance, your child is 18 years old, and you want them to have good credit as soon as they get out of college, per se, so that they no longer have to depend on you financially, but you've given them a great start. So if you have pretty decent credit or great credit, then you put them on an account that is in good standing, and it immediately builds their credit score up, and they have the opportunity to go out and get them an apartment, a car, their first car, or whatever it is, but it has to be in good standing. And you just add them on as an authorized user, and it allows their credit score to build. And you don't have to tell them. You can maybe wait until they're 25 to say, hey, have you checked your credit score lately, as long as it's in good standing, because, again, that's something that follows them just as if they opened the account themselves. So my husband had good credit when I met him, and although he didn't quite know my credit history, once he found out, he accepted it because I guess he had no choice at that point. But I was able to rebuild my credit off of attaching myself to one of his accounts.
One of the things that you said that was kind of interesting, you said, for example, if you have a child, you could put them as an authorized user on a good account, and then they may never, ever actually use that account, right?
Exactly.
They're just an authorized user. So I think that's a good clarification, that you don't actually have to give them access to that credit. You're just using your good credit and your good name to help them. And then at a certain point when they need it, they've got credit, because so if you have no credit, you really you can't buy a car, or if you do, it'll have to be at a I hear a lot. Can you talk a little bit about maybe one or two ideas about if you're just starting out, zero slate, what to do to start getting credit?
So what I would recommend is establishing credit with an account with, say, Walmart, Capital One, Citibank. It's going to be a small amount. It may be between $300 and $500, but use it. Pay it immediately when the bill comes, which should be $25 a month. So it's about building a rapport with credit companies. And even if they won't give you one, you can go to a credit union. If you join, they might give you a secured credit card. And even if you can't get a secured credit card, you may want to think about establishing a credit card with maybe Fingerhut. They also will give you credit. Just little places that may give you just a little bit. You just need someone to say, okay, I'll give you a little bit of money, and we'll go from there. Capital One seems to be a really good place to start. And then within 6 months, they will double your credit line a lot of times. But it's just about going out there seeing who will give you credit. Now, you don't want to have your credit ran 100,000 times and everyone says, no, we're not going to give you anything. But you can also think about getting a secure credit card where they might ask you need to put $100 in an account, and we'll give you, say, for instance, $75 worth of credit or whatever that credit limit may be. But it's a chance to jump on the radar for the credit bureaus to say, oh, okay, they're establishing something here and along the way. Also, you can ask your landlord to start adding you to the system, to start reporting your payments. So that's a good way. And even if you're in the market for a car, so I would never go out and just say, hey, a first-time credit person, go out here and buy a $30,000 car. Maybe you want to think about getting a lease. Leases are always good to help build your credit. And it may just be a lease on a compact car. And in 6 months, see if they have a loyalty program, trade it in, and try to get something that you want. And because at this point you might just need a car. Just try to upgrade from there instead of just jumping into something that you really can't afford or you don't know which way it's going to go, either left or right. But leases are always the cheapest, and I would start at a mid-sized car or a compact car if I was just starting out.
That's everything you said is just really, really good advice. I know that after I met you, one of the things that I helped my son do was we went to the local credit union and did a secured loan. So we put $300 into an account, and then he got a $300 loan. And it was at 3%, and then we just put the money back into the savings. So now he has a savings account with $600 in it, and he makes a small monthly payment, and they report immediately, and his credit score in about 5 months went from 0 to 650, which, is pretty good when you consider you had 0. Literally, right. There is no information about you. And now he actually has a score, and I can thank you for that. So thanks a lot to you. So tell me more about your program that you offer people. How does it work? What is the program that you have, and what is it called?
Favor and Finances.
Okay, Favor and Finances. So tell me a little bit more about how you help people.
So Favor and Finances is a 30-day challenge that literally helps you see your faults, your flaws, and your failures. So it's a program where you must be transparent. You must be willing to be vulnerable, but you also must be willing to be honest, because although it is your credit report, a lot of people don't want to be honest and say, you know what, I did rack up these charges. They blame everybody else. Oh, it was my husband, my son. I had to do this because I didn't have any money that day. So there are so many excuses that come along with your credit. So in order to even go through the program, you have to be willing to be honest. And I'm not asking you to be honest with me because it's not my credit, it's yours. So I send you an assignment and a scripture every day for 30 days to lead you and guide you back on the right path and back on the right direction credit-wise, and the steps that you need to take in order to do so. And like I said again, those are true relationships that no matter how many times you mess them up can be repaired. So it's a program that literally once you buy it, you can reuse it. So it's like, oh my God, what happened? Let me go back. Let me retrace my steps. Let me start over. So it is something that you can use as a tool and as a roadmap to guide you if you ever get lost again. It'll help you get back on track. And then after you complete the 30 days, if you still need help, I'm available. And then we start to work one-on-one with just trying to figure out what may be some other things that are keeping you bound or keeping you stuck, or just explaining some things that you may not quite understand and that you need help with. Because, again, finances are really, really hard to conquer if you don't understand how to use it.
Wow. When you describe that, you about being honest about your faults, your flaws, and your failures, especially when it relates to money, that really is phenomenal. And another thing, Q, after I met you, and we really didn't get to talk to each other very much, but the information that you gave me, I actually took that hard, deep breath and swallowed hard and went and checked my credit report because I was afraid of it.
Yes.
It was like what you don't look at, how we pretend it doesn't exist. And what was amazing to me, because, and I'll be totally transparent, is back in the housing crisis, my property lost 80% of its value, and I had to fight with Bank of America to get them to redo my loan. So, of course, that meant that it wrecked my credit. And, I had excellent credit that went down to, I think at one point, the lowest I remember was 480, which is really, really bad if you don't know. But so I was afraid. But after I talked to you, Q, I went and I looked at my credit, and they have the free annual report that you can get, or there's different services that you can get. And it wasn't as bad as I thought. Mm-hmm. And I actually did look at some of the things on the report, and I said, I looked at it, and they were like old, like, from 2000 or from 2008 or something. And it was like, and so I took your advice and I looked up the statute of limitations, and some of those things they should not have even been on the report because it had been longer than 7 years. And in some cases, it's 4 or 5 years. So I actually just use the actual dispute system inside the credit bureau. And you fill out a little form, and then they process it. And sure enough, boom, 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 they dropped, and all of a sudden my credit score went up by like 20 or 30 points because they got dropped. And they were things that some of them should never have ever been there. And there was even some telephone thing that it was not. I know it couldn't have been mine because I don't live in an area where that telephone company served.
Right.
And then there was also a something for a fruit and nut company.
Oh, wow.
and
okay.
It's like I've never ever bought fruit or nuts from anyone ever in my life, and so of course that was not mine. But like I said, it was such a eye opener. And when you talk about being vulnerable and being afraid, and just like you say about your relationship with God, you pray to God when things aren't going well. Well, you've got to be grateful no matter what is going on in your life, and pray when things are good and be thankful for everything you do have. But the thing that got me about the money, and I actually started to pay attention, and I discovered the more I pay attention to the money coming in, the money going out, the credit report, the better it all gets.
Yes. Yes,
because
you have to.
I'm focusing, I'm actually looking at it, and like I said, I helped my son through the advice you gave me so freely to start his credit, and already he could qualify for an FHA loan here in Florida. So think about that. In May, he had zero, zilch, nothing. And now he has a score of 650 that I think he needs one more little bit of credit, and that score will go up by about 30 points according to a credit simulator.
Mm-hmm.
So really, the reason I'm sharing my personal experience with everybody is because, Q's advice is real life advice, and it really works when you just take those action steps. So I'm really excited that you have it's called Finances in Favor.
Yes, Finance in Favor.
Finance in Favor, because everybody, I know that, everybody is huge, but anybody who makes money needs to start paying attention to it. And I really like your 30-day challenge. And then I like the idea that you also have the one-to-one, because some people, like you said, they may have some issues that they need to dig a little deeper about. And then you also, because of your real estate background, and I think that's a whole nother interview,
right,
to talk about how do you start using real estate to build wealth.
Yes.
That, when you made that statement, I was thinking, because real estate certainly can help you build wealth if you do it in the right way.
And yes.
I think, if I recall, you actually told me something that is contrary to how most people think about real estate. Like me, when I bought my property, it was, I'm going to live here forever.
No.
and Q says, no, you don't want to attach yourself to the real estate. You're using, again, real estate is part of the money tool, right?
It's part of the tool. So I have literally, since 2010 is when everything started to resonate with me as to what I wanted to do and how I can use it. So since 2010, I have literally bought about 5 homes, and it has served as a tool because, again, I am a real estate investor that I am not looking for interest. I'm not looking for equity. I am purely interested in the net profit. What is my net profit after I sell? So, of course, we were raised to, hey, buy a home, you stay in that home for 30 years, it's going to be your forever home. Well, things happen, times change. So there are times when people buy a home and they may have 4 or 5 kids and they may need four or 5 bedrooms. Well, what happens when the kids leave? What happens if the spouse dies? What happens if you are in this home and you have no equity? So you were talking about being underwater in your previous home. Well, that happened to me, and you can't pull any money out of it. So what happens then? Just say tomorrow, if the housing market burst again, then now we're back underwater, and you can't get any of that money out. But if you use it in a way where it serves as a tool, and say, for instance, you buy a home, and if you have a number, you always have to have a number, and you stick to that number. Say your number is $20,000. I'm going to buy this home. I'm going to fix it up. I'm only looking for $20,000. Once it reaches that $20,000 mark and you get out of it, that is $20,000 in cash that you have that you can put in your bank account. Who does not want cash flow? As long as you know how to use it. As long as you know how to use it. So yes, you can stay in a house and say, "Oh, you know what? I have $50,000 in equity in my home." Well, you know what? When you pull out that $50,000 in equity, guess what? You get the cash, but you still have to pay for that. You have to pay the bank back for that money that they just gave you. I'm not looking to pay anyone back. I'm just looking to get the money and go.
And reinvest and keep it growing for wealth.
Exactly. Yes.
Wow. We will have to have an entire interview just on how to use real estate to build wealth. Are you up for that, Q?
I am definitely up for that. Yes.
Okay. Because I think that, we're running into my next appointment. So,
okay.
but to tell you, I am just seriously, I could talk about money all day long because we have so many emotions tied up with money. And again, that's a whole nother conversation about our limiting beliefs related to money. And I've studied money a lot. And like I said, when I met you, Q, I really resonated with your finance and favor because it just makes so much sense to me. The advice you give, it's real life, it's solid, it's real. I tested it myself. It is solid advice. So definitely, seriously, if you want to figure out this money thing, put the 30-day challenge on your list with Q Jackson. Like I said, I just took a couple little gold nuggets that Q gave me, and I ran with it, and, I improved my own credit score. I helped my son get credit. He's looking at houses that, think about that. And that's just I've only known Q maybe a month and a half. So big things happen when you start to listen to people who have really experienced, negative $100,000 to being someone who has been able to buy 5 houses since 2010. Think about that. 2010 was right after our big, massive crash. Mm-hmm. And so really, it's a really phenomenal thing. So Q, how can people find out more about you and your services?
So I can be reached at Q Jackson, the letter Q, Jackson, JACKSON, behind closed doors, BEHINDCLOSEDDOORS @gmail.com.
That's another interview, the behind closed doors. So just to let everybody know, Q Jackson is an up-and-coming advisor. And like I said, good real life tips that you can literally take to the bank. Thank you so much, Q.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Tammy.
This is Tammy Patzer. Go make it a great day.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.